All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely shift how you look at building a business. We're moving away from those rigid, old school business plans and diving headfirst into a dynamic, design driven mindset. We'll be unpacking some seriously powerful concepts from Luca Iandoli and Kevin T. James's work, Design Your Business. We're going to trace that exact, messy, fascinating journey of taking a wild concept from the back of your mind and actually bringing it out into the real world. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar. You've got this brilliant concept for a new smartphone, maybe a board game, or a killer app, but you've totally struggled to make it a reality. Look, you are definitely not alone. Most of us dream about designing the next big thing, but actually taking the plunge to make those things real, that is a profound challenge. You see, entrepreneurship isn't just about admiring a shiny final product. It's about the incredibly messy, fascinating journey it takes to get there. You know, Jack Swigert hit the nail on the head during the Apollo 13 mission. Recognizing a problem is always the very first step. Fundamentally, entrepreneurship is just about identifying and solving the everyday problems that people actually struggle with. Because successful products, they don't just exist to look pretty. They act as an extension of human capabilities, stepping in to remove barriers and solve genuine points of friction for us. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 5 key steps: the entrepreneurial chasm, the design-driven mindset, empathy and creative confidence, the scientific entrepreneur, and finally, iterating toward success. Let's get to it. Starting things off with Section 1, the entrepreneurial chasm. This is all about taking ideas and turning them into actual products. Look, most business manuals out there get it half right. They focus heavily on ideation, brainstorming and getting into an entrepreneurial headspace, or they skip way downstream to the business launch, talking about funding and corporate structures. But they completely ignore the most crucial test, transforming your idea into a tangible, testable product. Honestly, ideas are cheap. Anyone can dream up a good idea. But crossing this chasm, actually building, packaging, and delivering it, that is where the real magic happens. So how do we actually bridge that massive gap? Well, that brings us to Section 2, the design-driven mindset. To pull this off and become truly effective design-driven entrepreneurs, we literally have to rewire how we think. We have to balance our rational and emotional thinking, our top and bottom brain. And we have to merge our imagination with analysis, our right and left brain. By integrating these, we unlock agility, empathy, and creative confidence. It's this highly flexible, almost superhuman cognitive toolkit that lets you adapt to whatever crazy situation the market throws at you. Which leads perfectly into Section 3, empathy and creative confidence, and how we use them as practical tools for discovery. Empathy is absolutely huge here. It means checking your ego at the door and just observing. It's a genuine willingness to see the world through someone else's eyes. Think about Howard Schultz. He was just observing casual coffee drinking behavior over in Milan, Italy. But he didn't just see people consuming a hot beverage, right? He saw the theater of it, the romance, this incredibly strong sense of community. That emphatic observation made him realize people craved a third place to hang out that wasn't home and wasn't work. And boom, that realization birthed the massive Starbucks empire we know today. Or consider Tony Fadell's journey with Google Nest. Fadell, a former Apple executive, was trying to build an energy-efficient house and realized the entire system hinged on one incredibly frustrating device: the traditional thermostat. So he started small. He solved that single problem by creating a sleek, simple knob connected to a smartphone. But he didn't stop there. He evolved that single fix into a massive interconnected smart home platform with security cameras, smoke detectors, and voice speakers. It all proves that great design always stems from a problem that's actually worthy of solving. But getting these ideas off the ground takes some serious guts. It takes creative confidence. And often, that results in an oxymoron, where you are championing an idea that sounds completely contradictory to everyone else. It defies common sense. Think of IKEA pushing democratized design, or the whole concept of affordable luxury. Back in the 1970s, the idea of a computer on every desk was seen as an economic and technical oxymoron. Even massive industry leaders thought there was absolutely no reason for a regular person to have a computer at home. Speaking of those early home computers, just take a look at this primitive machine from the 1970s, the Altair 8800. It had absolutely no screen. That was way too expensive back then. And it didn't even have a keyboard. It relied entirely on a series of switches for you to input data and LED lights for the output. You literally had to read your results by deciphering a sequence of blinking lights. I mean, it is genuinely hard to imagine a less user-friendly device. But here is the absolute best part about the Altair team. Talk about creative confidence. When their actual prototype got lost in transit during a shipping strike, they didn't panic. They successfully pitched a completely empty metal case to Popular Electronics magazine. The magazine trusted their sheer confidence that the computer actually worked, and it ended up sparking a total revolution for digital pioneers. They completely ignored the mainstream criticism and had the sheer boldness to put their crazy notion out into the world anyway. That kind of maker spirit, that constant tinkering, brings us right to Section 4, the scientific entrepreneur, which is where boldness finally meets rigor. Now, you hear people in business celebrate failure all the time, right? Like it's some sort of badge of honor. But let's be real. Failing hurts. It hurts economically and it hurts morally. So we have to test our ideas like scientists. Scientists don't just ask people to crash cars into brick walls to see if they're safe. They run highly controlled experiments to rule out assumptions before they sink all their money into a concept. Basically, we want to fail smart. So here is your game plan. It's a simple 3-step scientific method. Step 1, identify your assumptions and make them super explicit. Ask yourself, who exactly is the customer and what do they actually want? Step 2, design controlled experiments specifically aimed at proving your assumptions wrong. And Step 3, adapt and revise your plan based on what actually fails in those tests. Now, it won't give you absolute certainty, but it absolutely rules out the biggest, most likely sources of disaster. Want to see this in action? Let's look at Lego. Back in the early 2000s, Lego was actually on the brink of bankruptcy. They were operating on this massively flawed assumption that new generations of kids only cared about video games. So they launched these incredibly expensive, radical new lines, things like Galador and Jackstone, and they completely tanked. But by pivoting to iterative user testing, literally putting pictures in front of kids and asking them to build stories, they discovered a game changer. Kids actually wanted to co-create engaging narratives using the classic physical bricks. That single realization birthed the wildly successful Bionicles and Ninjago series. The kids even suggested making the villains evil skeletons. Okay, let's tie all of this together in our 5th and final section, iterating toward success. The golden rule here is pretty simple. Fail fast, fail small, fail cheap. This is agile entrepreneurship. It's what gives you the power to pivot on a dime when your initial assumptions inevitably prove wrong. By just constantly looping between creating something and then testing it, you start racking up these small, continuous wins. And those small wins act as a huge psychological reward, which perfectly balances out the frustration of the setbacks you're definitely going to face. And you'll see this agility in some of the biggest companies today. Take Slack, for instance. Believe it or not, Slack originally started as an attempt to design a massively multiplayer online video game. But the developers were agile. They pivoted gracefully when they realized that the quirky little internal communication tool they built just to help themselves collaborate on the game, well, that was actually a way better product. If they hadn't been constantly prototyping and experimenting, they never would have had that massive eureka moment. So what's the bottom line here? If you want to successfully cross that massive chasm from a cool idea in your head to a successful reality, remember these takeaways. Ideas are cheap. Execution is literally everything. You have to ditch your ego, start making physical or digital prototypes to truly build empathy with your users, and treat every single failure not as a defeat, but as a carefully controlled scientific discovery. As you step out there to design your very own business and leap across that chasm, I want to leave you with one final, absolutely crucial question. What is the single biggest assumption holding your idea together right now, and exactly how can you test it today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to go out there and build something incredible.